How's it going, everybody? I am Mark Pacis, and I am your host this week on the Hawkeye After Show. And now we are in week 3 of Hawkeye, and of course, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Jami Philbrick. Say hi.
Hey, how are you, everyone?
And Kiyra Lynn. Say hi too.
Hello, everyone.
Now, we have a lot to go through tonight, so I think we should get started considering it's 1 a.m. right now. So let's get started. So the episode begins with a dinner scene of sorts between Clint, Kate, and Jack and Eleanor. While being led out by Eleanor, she asks him to stay away from his daughter because she cannot lose her. But Clint, knowing that Kate is deep with this, says that he can't, but he can keep her safe. I mean, that's the least he can do. As he goes down the elevator, we see Clint with Ronan's sword, and he asked his wife Laura to look into Sloan Limited. Eleanor, meanwhile, makes a phone call to someone mysterious and says it's urgent. Now, Jami, what do you think of the scene, and who do you think that mysterious someone is?
Well, I love the scene. I thought it was really funny. I mean, Jack is really kind of growing on me. He's a very funny character. And I love sort of the back and forth with them and with the daughter-mother relationship in that scene and everything kind of between Clint and Kate. So I loved that Clint stole the Ronin sword back. I liked the sort of mother bear protecting her daughter with her little scene with the Avenger. Listen, Mr. Avenger, I don't want you causing any trouble for my daughter, which obviously pays off later in the episode. I thought that was great. To answer your question, I mean, look, everyone is going to assume, so let's just go ahead and assume that it's the Kingpin, that she's talking to the Kingpin. The Kingpin is the villain, and Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be in the final episode. Let's just assume that that's the case at this point until we have some reason to believe that that's not the case. But yeah, that would be my assumption. Whoever is in charge ultimately of the tracksuit mafia, I think, is who she's on the phone with.
You know, I just asked that question because I just wanted you to say that. You know that,
to
right?
Finally admit it. I'm so close to admitting that he's in the show. I'm so close to admitting Vincent D'Onofrio is on the show.
Kira, what did you think?
I loved it. You know, I don't necessarily know who Eleanor was talking to on the phone, but I feel that this is sort of the glimpse of that feeling that we've all been getting, that Eleanor isn't, you know, that bright, puffy, you know, bunny of a mom, that she's actually into something a little bit more sinister than, you know, they may be letting on. I love how, you know, in that scene at the dinner table, you know, Kate is basically saying, you know, we're partners. And Clint finally, in the end, kind of has to admit to Eleanor that, yeah, he is kind of working with her, and reluctantly admits all of that. Yeah, I really like, I didn't think that I would. I really did start to like Jack in this episode, and all the little tidbits that we're starting to see a little later on in the episode. But yeah, those opening sequences were great.
Yeah. I mean, Mark, I think that. Oh yeah, I mean, I think the scene itself was great, and it's good to see that Eleanor, you know, show off, like you said, her mama bear like aspect and try to protect Kate by any means necessary, whether it's, you know, making a deal with the devil or what. She's trying to protect her baby because, I mean, that's, you know, the only thing that she has left, really, other than Jack. But, you know, we'll get to that later.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Did anyone else get the feeling that Eleanor was putting it on a little bit thick when she was talking about how much she loves Jack? That seemed like a little bit of an act to me. I mean, I'm not saying she doesn't love Jack or care about him, but she was putting it on pretty thick to make it clear to her daughter and I think the audience that, you know, they're together. Like, I don't know. If we think she's really a villain here, then I'm wondering if Jack isn't more of a pawn than the villain he seems to be.
I don't know if I necessarily, and you guys would know this knowing the comics, I don't know if Jack kind of feels like he isn't as smart as we'd want him to be. And I think that you're right, that maybe Eleanor is the mastermind of the situation. Like I definitely get those vibes, Jimmy. I think I'll piggyback with you on that one. I yes, because it seems, because she has such an intensity, especially how they've dyed her hair dark with her light eyes, that just kind of gives her like this, villainous sort of, I don't know, vibe from me. But yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
I mean, when you compare the relationship between the two of them, with the next scene I'm going to be talking about, which is the Clint and Laura scene, those are two totally different, kind of relationships. And the fact that they put them like back to back against each other makes you see like, what a real loving relationship is compared to something that maybe, fake. I mean, during that scene, I would have agreed with you both completely, but the later scene, that we'll also get into, makes me think a little bit otherwise because, there's something in Kate where she sees like, oh my God, my mom is different too. But
Right.
the fact that they put those two scenes back to back against each other makes me think, they're trying to show the audience like, this is a fake relationship, but this is the real kind of
a
loving
contrast.
relationship. Yeah. And speaking of which, the next part is that Laura learns that Sloan Limited is run by none other than the Tracksuit Mafia and that their boss is Jack Duquesne. Laura also asks Clint if there's anything else missing from the compound, i.e. the Rolex, but she says so in German, but his kids, being the smarties that they are, realize that Clint is coming home again tonight. So Kira, what did you think of the seemingly symbiotic relationship, what we just talked about, between Clint and Laura and just the scene in general?
I mean, we all know that Laura and Clint, like Laura is the love of Clint's life. His family is his heart. And, it's nice to see them teaming up together. I like the fact that Laura is really actively involved in, his day job, as opposed to, she kind of takes on that Pepper aspect, Pepper, what Pepper was to Tony, which, they obviously trust each other and there's that relationship, but it also, as you said, their kids are really smart. Maybe talking in German worked for them, like worked when they were a little, and you saw the eye rolling going, oh, it's dad, he's not coming home. That part broke my heart a little bit because we all know how important it was for the family all to be all together, and now dad has to go off and work, and keeps delaying his homecoming. I would like, I can't wait to see them because I don't know. I mean, I don't think spoiling anything. I can't wait to see them all be reunited because, this whole anticipation and the disappointment that everybody's feeling, not only Clint, not only his kid, everybody's feeling the disappointment that their family is not together. But yeah, it was a good scene.
Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I really loved this scene because, obviously, as Kira said, like we know from the Marvel movies and certainly from everything that went down with Endgame, like what a great relationship he has with his wife and his kids and what a real family man Clint is. But I didn't realize that, and of course it makes perfect sense that she would sort of become a partner to him. She's sort of the oracle to his Batman, right? I know Mark gets that reference.
I do.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like she, and in a way, the way that I guess Pepper is a good example. Yeah, maybe in the Marvel universe for sure. So I really love seeing that, and of course, she speaks several languages, and of course she has these abilities to get this information for him. She's probably had to do it a bunch of times. We don't know, maybe Natasha trained her so that she would be able to help Clint. I mean, there's a lot of really cool possibilities, and it's great for Linda Cardellini to see her get a little bit more of you know, a little bit more to do in this role than just sort of, you know, be the mom and be Clint's, you know, rock in a sense. So yeah, I thought I was seeing it. I think you're right on point, Mark. I think they did probably cut them back and forth to sort of show the contrast. If they are indeed setting up that there's something off between Eleanor and Jack. So yeah, I like this scene, and yeah, of course, we all hope that 2 weeks from now we're talking about how the family gets together in the final moments of the. I mean, it would be disappointing if they don't, but how they get to that is going to be interesting over the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, because there is a lot of stuff left.
I just have a thought.
Yes.
I have a thought, though. You know, it's nice to see this other aspect, because something that you just said, Jamie, just kind of jogged something with me, that she is so well-rounded. Because if you think about a man like Clint, what kind of woman would he really be attracted to? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see, as you said, Laura actually she's multifaceted in a way that we haven't seen her in the movies. So it kind of, you know, you're like, how does a cold-blooded killer like Clint fall in love with a woman? Well, then, you know, I think that sort of also ties that bridge a little.
Yeah, and as Mark knows, she's not a character from the comics. He was with Morningbird or whatever, Mockingbird in the comics. So yeah, so we don't really know in the MCU history, in the MCU timeline, how they met. She could have worked at S.H.I.E.L.D. She could have done. I mean, we really don't.
She could have been Mockingbird.
We really don't. Yes, that actually is true, since the Mockingbird from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not canon. Sorry, Marvel fans, not canon. So, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we don't really know anything about Laura Barton. And if we find out some more stuff in this season, I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah. So, next up, Kate tries to continue to bug her mom about Jack. But to defuse the situation, Eleanor asks Kate to plan for the Bishop Company Christmas party. Jack then comes in and says, party? But Kate says that her mother can't dance, and Jack shows her otherwise. It's a very tender moment where Kate realizes that, oh my God, my mom hasn't been this happy in a while. Now, Jamie, do you think that Kate's suspicions about Jack still hold true? Or do you think that Jack finally got to her? Because we've been talking about Jack, you know, how we're starting to, like, you know, thaw towards him.
Right.
But is it just because he finally got to us too, like he did to Kate? Or
Interesting.
do you still have, like, some feelings of suspicions towards him?
A little bit. I do want to say first that when I heard help me plan for the Bishop Christmas party, I actually heard that's where the climax of the series is going to take place. So we know what's going to, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, that's where it's all going to go down. That's the big action sequence. That's the big final fight. That's where it all is going to take place. To answer your question, Mark, yeah, I mean, I think it did. I think as Jack and the actor, who's excellent, playing the character, has been able to do, I think they've thought out the audience a bit, and I think certainly with Kate's character as well in that scene. You know, it is discovered, I don't mean to jump ahead, that you know, he is in charge of Sloan, and so I'm wondering if, you know, as we were mentioning before, if he's not really just a pawn in Eleanor's whole plan, and if Eleanor's really, you know, and it's just, you know, his name on paper kind of thing, and I think that would be an interesting reveal, since we're all expecting him to be swordsman. We're all expecting him to play this villain, to kind of turn it on its head and have the character be more sympathetic, maybe duped in his own way. He is a villain, but he didn't mean to be. Yeah, I would still place money on Eleanor not being what she says she is. But yeah, I do think that the audience and Kate are warming up to it. But listen, Kate's protective of her mom. All she needs is a little evidence that Jack is, you know, what she thought he was in the beginning, and she'd jump on that. So I don't know how much
the ice wall goes
really
up again.
Changed it. Yeah. I don't know how much he really changed her mind, but maybe a little bit in that scene in the living room.
Kira, what about you?
Well, it's funny because Jamie, again, you said something that kind of jogged something in me when his uncle dies, and we initially see the uncle and Eleanor fighting, and he obviously doesn't like Eleanor for whatever reason. Maybe he was really onto something. Maybe it really is Eleanor that we need to be, that we really need to keep our eye out on. I'm really feeling that as of this episode. But in regards to, that particular scene, I loved watching how that dynamic changed, how, Jack he's making fun of himself and then, Eleanor and Kate pointing out how silly it is, and then them laughing and seeing, you could see the glimpse in her eye, Kate's eye, like, oh my gosh, my mom's enjoying herself, like, and kind of relaxing a little bit, and then really seeing that, oh, maybe they are in love, and how that immediately made her uncomfortable that she had to leave the situation. She's like, oh wow, my mom is so happy. Ooh, my mom is so happy. Kind of along those lines.
That was a good Hailee Steinfeld impression. I saw the Hailee in that, and that was a very good impression. I saw it.
I will take it.
Yeah, I mean,
I do.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I do really like the attitude and the performance here with Kate from Hailee Steinfeld. While we're sort of talking about her, like that, just the kind of attitude she has with Hawkeye and with her mom, and that sort of teenager thing, young adult thing. And I really like the character a lot. She's doing great work with it.
I'll agree with you with that on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of us would react the same way. It's like, oh God, why is my mom like acting like this towards this other guy? It's like, you know what? I'm out of here. Bye. Peace. I mean, I would honestly react the same way, but I mean, it's nice to see them, act that way towards each other, because I think that's been the first time in a long time where I think Kate realized, like, man, this actually feels like a family again, because, for a longest time, it's just been her and her mom. But now with Jack's situation, she's been trying to push him away. But at that moment, it's like, wow, so this is what it feels like to be a family again. And I'm kind of enjoying this. But I still don't want you two to be together. So, you know what? I'm just going to get out of here before all this lovey-dovey stuff, rubs off on me too. So I think, and also because she knows that she screwed up as well because of what Jack said about, not being alone, which leads me to the next big scene of the episode, because this is by far my favorite scene of the episode, which is Kate realizes that she screwed up Clint's holiday, and as Clint is icing down all of his sore muscles, he gets a buzz at the apartment door. Kate comes in with Lucky with pizzas, Christmas sweaters, movies, a Christmas tree for them to decorate, and good old-fashioned holiday cheer. But first things first, Clint tells Kate that she's right about Jack and tells her everything she knows about the tracksuits and him. So as they spread some, that holiday cheer, they concoct a plan to take down Jack's operation. And Kira, there's a lot of things that happen in the scene. It's a lot, like, Hawkeye teaching Kate how to, throw that quarters, to Clint telling Kate about, how he met Widow, to Kate finally realizing that, oh my God, you're Ronin. So what do you think of the dynamic so far, at that point between them?
I really loved how they cut this scene. I loved how it would flash, they would, they start the scene off, I think it was like Kate trying to come up with the plan as she's writing with her, her erase marker, a new erase marker. And like they do these quick cuts to kind of get to the meat of the bonding, because essentially that's what they're doing over daiquiris, by the way. And I loved how, they cut the scene and like all of a sudden you see the daiquiri, getting blended. And then, then all of a sudden you start to see Clint loosen up a little bit more. And I loved seeing that. But when she asked him, what was it? What's the best shot that you ever took? And he says, it's the one that I didn't take, and then he starts talking about Natasha and that whole situation. It kind of gave me a lump in my throat. Like, for me and my family, that whole scene when Natasha dies, I'm not giving anything away to anybody who doesn't know anything. That was like, for us, that was a painful experience as fans. And to actually kind of relive that through what Hawkeye is experiencing, it kind of brought a little bit of a tear to my eye. I don't know if anybody else kind of got a little bit emotional, because I know I did. And then
For sure.
I love, and I don't want to, it does flash back to him actually kind of reliving that trauma, yeah, it was fun. And then it ended really powerful for me.
Jami, what do you think?
Yeah, I loved that whole sequence. I thought it was really great. Great to really see Kate and Clint bond, and I think it was very important to see them bond at this point in the episode, this point in the series. And we'll discuss sort of what happens towards the end, and then I think it was important to have this bonding so they can come back together and set up the last 2 episodes of the season. I will say that I don't buy that Clint could teach her the coin trick in one night, half drunk. I don't buy it. Like, I think that's a skill that takes months and months and years of practice. But I get why they did that for we only have so much time. But I loved the whole bonding thing with them. And, it's a great contrast, sort of Kate's, enthusiastic, bubbly kind of personality. And then, Clint, I mean, we all know he's a teddy bear inside, but he's a gruff, and Jeremy Renner's a gruff actor and a gruff guy, and he's a gruff character. And you do love sort of seeing the gruff, that he does like her. And I thought it was really great character development and great bonding stuff, and really important for the series to have that take place now that we're sort of a little bit more than halfway through, so we can really hit the accelerator and go full stop for these last 2 episodes.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned that he's a teddy bear inside but gruff on the outside, because the entire time I've been looking at that particular scene, I just can't stop staring at the grumpy cat sweater, the Christmas sweater that he's wearing, because that is the epitome of grumpy cat. Because, big ups to grumpy cat, rest in peace.
That was no accident, Mark. That wasn't a wardrobe accident. That was done very purposefully.
Kate particularly bought that just for him to wear, because that is his personality in a nutshell. And, there's a particular scene that I also love that I wish happened last week, because the comic that the episode was based on, Hawkeye #3, there was a scene where Kate is where Clint tells Kate to use something called a boomerang arrow, where to try and take down the tracksuit mafias, but they didn't use the boomerang arrow last week. So I'm glad they talked about the boomerang arrow this week, because that particular panel in that issue was really, really funny, because at that point, Kate realizes, like, oh my God, that's what you use a boomerang arrow for. You intentionally miss it so that it comes back and hits, the guy on the head. And
Mark, can I mention something about the boomerangs?
Yeah.
I want to jump ahead. Did you see the boomerang Easter eggs later in the episode?
Oh, wait.
I don't mean to jump ahead, but when Kate breaks into Echoes of Tamaya's apartment, as she walks in the door, there's a row of boomerangs hanging on the wall right next to the door as Kate walks in. It's like a decoration, looks like a decoration thing, but they're definitely boomerangs. That's no accident.
Jami, I do have to mention that you said in the last episode that the start of this episode, they weren't going to fight, and you totally called it.
Yeah, you did.
So,
You did call
when
it.
you're talking about the boomerangs now, I'm gonna say I think maybe Jamie's gonna start taking on as the guy that like Mr. Predictions. See into the
I
crystal
know all
ball.
things Hawkeye. Nah, I just know how the MCU works.
I mean, speaking of which, because the next scene that I'm about to get to, I kind of sort of called from the last episode too. So, moving on. Now with their plan in motion, Clint tries to convince Kazi to tell Maya to put this whole beef aside between Ronan and her and, just basically squash it. Meanwhile, Kate makes a deal with the LARPers that if they get them the material to make new costumes, they would tamper with evidence to get them their trick arrows back. Now, Jamie, I know you and I are waiting patiently for Clint to get his iconic costume back. So, you think we'll finally see it with the LARPers or not?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be the same costume we saw in the LARPer scene in the first episode, second episode, but there's definitely talk of the LARPers making Kate and Hawkeye some costumes. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's based on the drawings that we saw she had at the diner in the last episode. So yeah, I think that that's definitely possible. I mean, it would make sense. Maybe those are the costumes that they wear, when the big fight happens at the end at the Bishop Christmas party in the final episode. I mean, who knows? But it would be, I think they'll definitely wear that. I thought it was interesting that the LARPers came back. I find it a little suspicious that people that work for the NYPD would be so quick to commit a crime against the NYPD, even if an Avenger was asking them to commit that crime. I mean, that just seemed a little easy. Like they didn't have to, Kate didn't have to convince them too much. And I loved the scene with Kazi. I loved the way Clint just so calmly threatened him. And I think at the end he was just like, get it done. Like he wasn't like, all right, let me know. He was just like, just get it done. And so
and
I
outsmarted him
really
too.
like that sequence. Yeah.
Kira, what do you think? Are you finally going to see it? Are you going to be as excited as we are?
Well, I mean, I'm excited as you are, of course, but I love the fact that Clint sent her out to the LARPers because, God, it would be such a waste if they didn't bring that back. And I hope we see more of them. I hope that we see the new costumes that are supposedly coming up. Hopefully, to your point, yes, it's a little. It is a little worrisome that the NYPD is willing to commit a crime and how easily they were swayed. But what I liked about the Kazi scene is we know that he has a conscience, like we've seen in previous episodes, that he's already confronted Maya about her taking it too far, and so it's it's good that Clint knows even that Kazi is Maya's number two, and he's the person that may be able to talk some reason into her, or maybe they'll have to take it to the big guy in order for her to calm herself down, get her act together, and then for him to keep grabbing for all of his weapons, and Clint is obviously 3 steps ahead of him. But I really liked how Kazi was like, oh, in the car, and then all of a sudden you just see Clint throw the gun into the bay. I don't know. I got a real good kick out of that one.
I mean, to your guys' point, the NYPD were quick to, tamper with evidence to get them their trick arrows back, but realize a lot of them are on a first name basis now. Because remember, he's like, yeah, you can call me Clint. It's like, oh man, yeah, good job, Clint. You can call me. I I forgot the guy's name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. On a first name, friendship basis, and if you have a chance to help out with an Avenger, I mean, there's a reason why they're the Avengers. They save the world. Everybody in New York knows that because everybody says thank you, for saving our lives. So of course, I mean, I feel like the reason why they were so willing to tamper with evidence is because, oh my God, I'm helping an Avenger. This must be, an Avengers level threat that they need his trick arrows for, because that's his thing. Like, when people know of Iron Man, they think of the suit, Captain America, the shield. Hawkeye, it's his bow and arrow. So when Kate says, like, Hawkeye needs his trick arrows back, like, yeah, you got it. Like, I'm on board. You can, your BFFs with him. Like, yeah, let's go and do this thing, because I want to help him out too, because him and I are on a first name basis now. And yeah, I totally agree with you with the whole Kazi thing. That entire scene was, excellent. But I'm just like you, Kara. I'm just glad they brought back the LARPers, because that would have been a waste in one episode. Like, you can't introduce LARPers without bringing them back at some point later on the episode.
Do you guys think that Clint's gonna bring her bag back? And what I really like, she was like, "It's my wife gave it to me." Like, I was like, "It's got my name embroidered on it," and I was like, I wonder. I wonder if that bag is actually going to be returned to her. I don't know. I know these are the weird things that I think about during these episodes. Look at Mark.
That bag's gone, man. That bag is gone.
They'll replace it. They'll get him. Right. Knowing Clint, if he does lose it, he'll get them something cooler. Maybe. Oh,
what?
And a Hawkeye branded bag.
It's
all about branding.
It's true.
So it's like, yeah. So it's like, I didn't get you. I lost your bag, but you can have the first edition of this Hawkeye bag. Here,
with your
take
name
it.
On it.
Yeah, with your name embroidered on it. All right. To close things up, Laura pings Clint to tell him that the Rolex from the Avengers compound was not destroyed and is actually in an apartment building. So Clint and Kate go to the location to try and get it back. Of course, Kate, being who she is, goes off and tries to get the watch back for Clint without him even realizing that she's gone. Kate gets into the building her own way before she realizes that the whole place is a trap. Maya fights Kate while a mysterious fighter is starting to fight Clint. Little do we know that the mysterious figure is none other than Yelena Belova herself, getting revenge for the death of her sister. So, Kira, what did you think of the scene and the reappearance of Yelena? Finally!
I'm really surprised that Hawkeye has been so patient with Kate, because when she just took off and completely did not follow his plan, I was kind of pissed at her. You know what I mean? Because this entire time, he's the one with the experience. He's the one with the advantage. And I mean, I guess it's a typical of that age, thinks that she knows everything. But I did find it funny that, she's like, "Oh, I'll just go to the front door. I'll just help this guy in, with his groceries." But when she gets into the apartment, I would have never, until Clint brings it up, that, the flashing lights were for an alarm for a non-hearing person. I was like, oh, duh. Like, I should have been a little bit more smarter than that. But that entire fight scene, I loved it. I'm so glad that we finally see Yelena. We knew at the end of Black Widow that she was going to be showing up in Hawkeye. I'm glad they did it in episode 4, because I think we've got 2 more episodes left. We were kind of just waiting for when she was going to show up. The fight scenes were great. I did kind of like when Kate fell off the building, and did the whole Natasha sort of thing, and how, did all. For him to have that whole sigh of relief of that, she didn't fall to her death, but then he cuts her down. I thought that was quite a Clint thing to do. But I found it interesting that Maya was, didn't stay and fight as long. She ended up cutting out. I was expecting her to keep, she has Clint there. She would have kept going for it. But I don't know if she realized that she was, going up against a Black Widow assassin. I'm not too sure. And I found it very interesting that Clint doesn't know who Yelena is. So that's like a nice little nugget that us as the audience knows, or does he? I don't know. I got the feeling that how would he know who she is? Like I don't know if Natasha would have actually ever shared that with him or them. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up. That was exactly what I was thinking, because it did give the appearance. I mean, he said that's a Black Widow assassin. And so does he recognize her as Yelena, technically Natasha's sister? Now, you brought up a good point, Kira. Like, would Natasha have shared that? But Hawkeye also very protective of his personal life and family. And we remember from Age of Ultron, she was the only other, I'm not even sure if Nick Fury knew. Maybe Nick was the only other one, but certainly Natasha was the only other Avenger that knew that he was married and had a family, knew anything about Clint, really. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I didn't quite get that he recognized her as her sister, just that he recognized her as a Black Widow, but they could be playing fast and loose with that as well. We could find out more in the next episode. He may know exactly who she is. Loved the whole sequence. I'm with you, Kira. I was annoyed with Kate when she just rushed across the street and decided to go in, didn't listen to anything Clint had to say. But yeah, that's Kate. That's a teenager. Like, we get it. And then, yeah, I mean, that was very obviously reminiscent when she falls off the roof at the end of Natasha falling. And obviously Hawkeye had that sort of PTSD moment, kind of seeing that and a flashback. And so it makes sense that he would cut her loose at that point and say, and I think as we were talking about earlier, what Eleanor said in the beginning, I think that rings true. He doesn't want to be, he's a father too. He certainly doesn't want to be responsible for, helping to lose someone else's child. So, and the fight sequence stuff on the rooftop, I thought was excellent. I thought that was some really good fight sequence stuff and coordinated stuff. And I think it's great that, they got the watch. At least it was a mission accomplished in that sense, because Kate has the watch. Echo doesn't now. So, but it will be very interesting to see what happens with Yelena in the next 2 episodes. Will there be another kind of a fight scene with her and Hawkeye, a confrontation? Will she learn, Hawkeye's side of the story? Because she only really knows what Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character told her about her. The Contessa told her about him killing Natasha, which obviously we know is not factually correct at the end of Black Widow. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it was important that they kind of got her in and introduced in this episode. I hope we see more of her in the next episode and culminates towards the end of this.
Now, I just have to ask you guys, because we were talking about this off camera. You just mentioned the Rolex, and we were talking about the Rolex. And we had to ask, the three of us had to ask, or Jamie and I had to ask Mark whether or not we were like, have we seen this Rolex before? And
we have not seen this Rolex
before.
Not that I know of. It could be like some off, off screen.
Yeah, I didn't recall anything from any of the movies that is a reference, to anything.
Yeah, like it wasn't if it wasn't a prominent thing. It must have been like something like off to the side that only eagle-eyed Marvel fans would see. But to answer your guys' thing, remember in the Widow movie, like Widow and Yelena at the time didn't know that the other one was still a widow. They haven't really kept in touch. And so when she finally learned that Clint was responsible for Natasha's death, I think at that point, that's when, she starts to go and try to kick his ass. So I don't think there was, between the events of Black Widow and now, I don't think there was a lot of communication between Natasha and Clint about, what happened in Black Widow. I mean, You would think so, because an entire red room thing just fell off out from the sky, and maybe Clint, I don't know, as a friend would have asked, did you?
It was a long fight. it was a long flight to Baltimore. So, you know, I mean, they had a lot of time to, she could have explained all the events of Black Widow to him,
Yeah.
in the time that it took for them to get to Baltimore. So who knows? But your point's well taken.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I can get that, but yeah, I think that fight scene, man, that showed off everybody's like skill level, from Clint's to Kate's to Yelena's to Maya's. It's like an entire mixture of everybody's skill level on trying to kick each other's butt. And I think that's the reason why I personally really like that scene, because I like to see, it's kind of like MMA in a sense, where you have different fight styles going off against each other and trying to see, which one is the better, fighter. And so I think that kind of relates with this one as well. And, there's a lot left. Like, what is that Rolex? We got the answer about Yelena, and now we have a new question about the Rolex. So what are you guys hoping for, like, the last 2 episodes?
Wow. I'm like, I was still stuck. I'm still stuck on the Rolex. That's the thing. I'm totally still stuck on the Rolex, because we were talking off camera. I'm like, who does the Rolex belong to? Is it Tony's Rolex? I mean, is he protecting Pepper from something? Like, I've totally, like, and now I'm thinking, do I need to go back? I'm sure our listeners will tell us whether or not, if we've missed something. Now I'm like, do I need to go back and, like, look for this Rolex at the Avengers compound? Like, which Avengers compound was it? Was it the 2012 Avengers compound, or was it, which one was this existing at? So, but obviously, I want all of the loose ends to be tied up. I would like to see more fighting. I expect to see more fighting from Jack. I don't think we've gotten that sword fight yet. I know obviously it was that play sword, fencing fight between him and Kate, but I don't think they've really pulled out the big guns when it comes to Jack and what he can do. And I don't think, and if what we're thinking about Eleanor is true, I'm pretty sure we're gonna see a little bit of something coming from her as well. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to see Clint come home, because, it would be sad if he didn't. I mean, also, I feel that somebody needs to die. Nobody has really died yet. So, I mean, I feel that that's happening. Who that's going to be, I don't know. I mean, do you guys feel the same way? I feel it needs to be some sort of death, or is it too Christmassy that, Marvel wouldn't do that to us? I don't know. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I certainly don't think they're going to kill off Clint or Kate, and we know they won't kill off Echo. So that kind of moves down the list of people.
So you say.
Well, I don't know how
how do you
kill off Echo when you've already advertised her show coming next year?
No, I'm talking about. I'm talking about.
I don't. Oh yeah, but so that is possible. Clint could get killed off, because we know that Renner is done playing that character. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they would do it. I agree. He's got to get back to his family at the end of this episode. I think they would leave him retired, if anything. If in fact he is in Hawkeye at the end of this, and if Kate moves on with that. So, as far as the Rolex goes, I think Tony makes the most sense. But then it did seem, the way Hawkeye was talking about the owner of the watch, like it was someone who was still alive that needed protecting. But maybe their identity needed protecting. But then everyone knows that Tony Stark is Iron Man. So I don't really know. I don't know what other Avenger would be wearing a Rolex. But I would love to get to the end of that mystery in the next 2 episodes. I agree. I think we need to find out what Eleanor's up to. Obviously, we want to find out who Uncle is, and cross our fingers that it actually is Vincent D'Onofrio. We'd love to see him, cameo or just appear. And I hope it's more than just like a shot of him. Like, I hope it's him actually doing something very Kingpin-esque. And then, like with Swordsman, I'd love to see him actually get to do, and I think we will. I think he will at some point. I maybe in whatever big climax scene at the Bishop Christmas party, he has to pick up a sword. Maybe he becomes the new Ronin alongside Hawkeye and Kate. Who knows? But yeah, and then of course we need to have something kind of come to head with this with Yelena. So does Yelena find out the truth? Or Hawkeye's side of the story, and Hawkeye has to repent in some ways for being Ronin by the end of this, and obviously he has to get back together with Kate so they can finish this case, and he can get home in time for Christmas.
I heard that there may be a potential post-credit stinger next week that will maybe sort of break the internet. So I'm kind of hoping that's finally the Kingpin appearance. I mean, we heard that Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil, so maybe that's when we finally see Kingpin. Maybe, I'm hoping. Crossing my fingers.
That would make sense. That would make a lot of sense. Yep.
I mean,
that would make even more sense why Feige would decide this week of all weeks to, confirm that Charlie Cox will at some point return as Daredevil. So yeah, and after the audio chuckle of Vincent D'Onofrio last week, yeah, it seems
to admit it.
Oh yeah. Well, it really did sound like him. I mean, it certainly did sound like his
That's
voice.
what I said.
I don't know how much you can tell from a little chuckle, but I agree. It sounded like him. But that's still playing, he could still be playing coy. And if that's the only Kingpin appearance in the whole series, do you know what I mean? Like he wouldn't have been lying to any press when he said I didn't appear in it. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes together.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. It was a pleasure. Now, Jami, Kiyra, where can we find you guys? Jami, go first.
Yeah, you can find me at Philbrick on Instagram and on Twitter, my name on YouTube, and you can check out my movie reviews and other articles on moviephone.com.
Yes, Movie Phone. I'm Kiyra Lynn. You can watch me on Hollywood First Look. You can check your local cable listings for showtimes. Otherwise, my Instagram is at Kiyra Lynn, KIYRLYNN. And so is my Twitter. So catch me there.
And I'm Mark Pacis. You can find my movie reviews at nerdreactor.com. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram I got it right the first time. Right there at PacmanNR7. And be sure to subscribe to the HCA YouTube channel. And thank you for watching once again. And we will see you next week at 1 a.m. Pacific time, 4 a.m. Eastern time. Really early for you guys. So see you next week.
Bye. Everyone.